Executive producer Brendan Martin down in Marion County, Florida, the horse capital of the world, Ocala.
Right, we are Ocala, Florida. We don't say Marion County, really.
Ocala, Florida. Okay, Ocala.
I don't like the name.
We got a lot to cover today, Brendan. Man, I love this. Mornings, nights, two-a-days. Look, the SEC Dynasty, Brendan, talking before the show, made a great point. That's our theme today. Is it in jeopardy? We had this discussion earlier this summer with Tyler Siskey back in mid-June about where are those 2s and 3s that were staying at SEC schools and getting developed. Well, they're on other rosters, so watch out, folks. Doug Dean, Frank Duffy, Ken Capps, and Matt Price, part of the Vitamin Shop team, will drop in to say hello at about half past the hour. Get pen and paper handy. Smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, be grateful for what you got because we got a lot to talk about, and it's going to get better. We're going to solve all the world's problems, or at least try, in the next hour plus minutes. Thank you.
Pen and paper.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with you on this Friday morning. Got a lot to cover. Frank Duffy looks like possibly Atlanta?
New Orleans,
the Big Easy. Okay. Frank, look, man, Doug Dean will be on with us in just a minute. I know Ken Capps will come on about half past the hour. We're going to talk about that big game up in the Big House. Good morning, Doug Dean in Birmingham. The Big House, Texas goes to Michigan. Meanwhile, man, it's been a wild week. This is what we love, though. Two-a-days. Our show in the morning, Buddy Martin show at night. Lot to cover. Doug, let's get started. You and I talked yesterday afternoon in the pregame planning. I'm going to put the ball in your hands and run with it.
Well, first I want to ask, good morning, guys.
Morning,
Duff,
buddy.
better days ahead, Duff. We're going to lift you up. You're our brother, man.
Hey, man. Thanks a lot.
I'm not
That's cool,
done.
dude. I mean,
I had to finish the sentence. We're going to lift up Brendan, too. There's more, a little harder to create a story of hope for Brendan, but it's a long
broadcasting
season.
from my basement in Central Florida.
It's like we're mountain
we all
climbers
are
and we're all hanging on everybody else's ropes.
We are all broadcasting from my studio in the basement. Oh wait, no basement in Central Florida.
If you want, first of all, Brendan, I want to make sure you don't, for our teleprompters, do not put a question mark at the end of a sentence. It'll be, I'm Ron Burgundy. Because
I'm kind of a big deal, so I don't know.
For your audience, Rob, no teleprompters here, baby.
No.
That's why I refer to coaches being offensive coordinators at the wrong school like a week ago. That will not happen today. I've run stadiums, Duff, and I'm ready to go.
There you go.
So, I don't know. Gosh, so much to cover. I'm not going to even refer to Texas, Michigan, because Ken will be coming on, and this will be a kind of a all Texas, Michigan. You can guess where I'm leaning if you think back to who I picked to win the SEC this year, running back injuries notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I don't want to be unkind. I think what attracts people to your show, Rob, is in part, first of all, the guests who really know what they're talking about. I'm not referring to myself, but the variety of guests, the fact that it's not just one school or program bias. We try to cover the SEC heavily, not afraid to go outside the SEC for fun. But I don't want to be unkind. It's too early in the season. No fan base should have to be dismayed and despairing before it's even mid-September. But you got to ask yourself, Florida State, after the magical year last year, to be 0-2 in week one, Duff. Don't play a week 0 game. I'm sorry, but I think LSU, I appreciate T-Bob's bravado in saying, no, you should just go win that game and don't be insert bad pejorative here. And he's not wrong about that. But I think if the committee, the selection committee, in all evidence, is not going to notably reward playing these tough early games, non-conference games, screw it. Schedule the directional schools early. Let your team have an extended fall camp and get better. And then by the time you get on the field, your chances are probably a lot better. Now, you could say, well, USC didn't seem to have any trouble with that. Come on. I mean, the game was anybody's to take down the stretch, and I'll leave the breakdown of that for Duffy.
Well, 8 seconds to go. Obviously, the game was still up for grabs. I don't have so much problems with USC. I think USC, in the rearview mirror of this season, that will not be considered a bad loss.
No.
I think USC is a very good football team. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten, but they certainly will have a say in who does. My issue with Brian Kelly is, how is it that the last 3 seasons we've looked under your tutelage to be so unprepared for that very first game? And I'm not talking about X's and O's. Look, I always said, and I've said this on about the last 4 shows, I think losing Denbrock is going to be a lot harder than most Tiger fans thought. That was going to be a big replacement to have to fill his shoes. He was a very good offensive coordinator. And look, you saw that the way Notre Dame moved the ball against Texas A&M. My issue is the lack of composure. And look, I'm not only calling out, Major Burns and Kyron Lacey, veterans who should know better. You don't take your helmet off ever until you're on the bench. And then you certainly don't play like you're shooting someone, not in today's society. And look, I just drove from Atlanta to New Orleans. We just had another school shooting. So you have to be sensitive to that. But look, I also have to call out Brian Kelly. You don't run your mouth the week before giving another very good team bulletin board material. You don't do that. And look, I don't care how you tried to spin it the day after about how the analytics say that, on 4th and 3, it's a high propensity to score. I'm sorry. This is SEC football. You drive down the field. Yeah. You get within the red zone. You got 3 cracks at it. You don't get in. You take the 3 points from the 3-yard line, especially on the first drive, especially after that you have to call a timeout. Yeah. There's no – it's coaching 101. So, look, I thought it was a little bit disingenuous for Brian Kelly to go to the post-game conference and start banging his head on the table. He needed to be banging it on his head, because you help, cause this issue. So I think it's a composure issue. I don't think it's a player issue. We're going to come back. In fact, I drove in for the Louisiana trifecta. I'm going to go to the Tulane game at noon. Tiger game 7:00 tomorrow, and then we got the Saints in the Dome on Sunday. So I'm hitting the Louisiana trifecta. We'll be fine. It's going to come down. We got to go to Williams-Brice, which is always a hornet's nest. No matter what South Carolina has, it's always a hornet's nest. But if we can come out of there, we get UCLA at home. I got to think we split it. Split between the LA teams. And then we get Ole Miss coming in. And that's when the rubber hits the road. Everything is still on the page. When you lose that first out-of-conference game, you still have everything to play for in the SEC. And that's going to be the game that determines the trajectory of LSU. But, yes, 3 years, you got to have better performances in the beginning of games.
I thought Nussmeier played a great game. When you lose, especially adjusting for the bright lights of being in Vegas, playing a marquee brand name, and people can say what they want about USC being soft on the West Coast, and some years they are, but I'll never forget, Rob won't forget, a great Auburn team in 2002 was it, goes out there and had a great game. Cadillac and Ronnie Brown played great, but came up short. Duff, I like LSU's schedule going forward, second only to Texas.
Yeah.
Because as I told you yesterday, trying to give you some hope, you got the toughies, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Oklahoma, all in Death Valley. So it sets up, if you can fix some of these problems, it sets up to give LSU could be laughing last by the time we get to late October, Rob.
Well, let me throw this one in, Frank. Robert Jones made a comment here, a viewer over in Wynne, Arkansas, and I met him recently over at Greenway, lifelong Notre Dame fan from Indiana, and in the Army for 21 years, loves the Irish and loves this show. He said, now you know what us Notre Dame fans had saw for 12 years up at Notre Dame. I mean, and I see what he's saying, but the guy's won. He's won more games, I think, than Nick Saban. Of course, he's not Nick Saban. It's not a comparison. But what I looked at the game, I watched it. You got the player doing this, after the score, taking a helmet off after a play, and then the targeting. That's and Lauren Meadows brought this up about what's going on at Florida with Billy Napier. That's kind of a Monday through Friday problem. Yes. Same thing with LSU. You've got everything in the world going for you. You are the school in the state of Louisiana, and you got to figure that out, and you got to get it under control. But banging and getting mad at a press conference, that doesn't cut it. You've got to keep cool and take care of that stuff behind the scenes.
Here's the other, Duff. I don't want to pile on Coach Kelly, because guess what? Y'all have a few more years marriage without prenuptials, as in dinero, baby. And
we got to make it work for the kids.
Yeah, and I'm not ready.
Quote of the day.
I want to see how this season plays out for LSU, but I'm not ready to write off Brian Kelly. That's a little silly.
No,
that's overreaction Monday or Friday. But I think Coach Kelly he needs a PR handler like our number 45 president could probably use. But he stepped in. He contradicted himself when he said, "Well, I wanted to. The reason we went for it for the touchdown on that first drive is statistically the analytics." He said, "If you score first, much higher percentage to win." Well, the problem with that, Coach Kelly, is you get back down there and you got a chip shot field goal, brother. You can be the one to score first.
You will score
touchdown. First. And he forsakes the field goal there. Yeah. So, he needs to understand. LSU fans may sound funny when they talk. Some of them, like
they don't think funny.
LSU fans are damn high IQ when it comes to their football.
Let me tell you, and we know LSU football more importantly. And LSU football is take the damn points, go back, and put your defense. And look, our defense was abysmal last year under Matt House. Horrible. We played really well defense. I know we gave up the last two drives, but the defense was much improved. Our big problem was, and I do hold Kelly for this, because not only him, but our offensive line was running their mouth the whole week leading up to the game, popping off. Even Will Campbell, our All-American tackle.
Yes.
Hey, we're going for a fist fight. We're not going to Caesar's Palace. Okay. Yeah. You want to say that stuff on Wednesday? You got to back it up on game day, because the reason we lost that game is, look, when we played Hold That Tiger, those four little notes at the end of the third quarter going into the fourth quarter, we had a 4-point lead. We had momentum. They had gotten stopped at midfield. If it wouldn't have been for the boneheaded move by Major Burns to take his hat off, we'd had it at midfield, and we had the momentum. What we normally do in that situation is we use our big offensive line and run hard behind them. Now, we got a big hit. John Emery went out on Tuesday. Season-ending injury. However, we got Caleb Jackson. This kid, before his time at LSU is up, he is going to be a star in this league. I'm telling you. I've watched him. He was the guy that struck the Mississippi State guy last year, late in the game. Just did a Leonard Fournette on him. Just blew him out. And he's gotten more muscular. He's lost some belly weight, and he's fast, and he runs with a vengeance. He's going to be a good player. But what we needed to do is we needed to have our offensive line in that last 8 or 9 minutes pull a Georgia Tech like they did against Florida State over and over there. And you put the guys' hands in the ground, you come out firing. we had great blocking for our passing game the whole game. They really graded out well. But you couldn't move them off the line on running. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, we wasn't getting them. So that's where LSU had a problem. So no, I feel good about our chances still this year. This is not a we went and hung a bad loss out there. It hurt because it was a close ball game and we should have won it. But I still like our chances to be a factor in the SEC.
You came from Vegas with a backdrop of a slot machine a week ago. You just aren't playing with house money now, Duff.
No,
now,
you're right.
The margin is
with
thin.
Grandma's rent money, and she's living in a 1-bedroom shack above the Zalmans up on stilts, and the weather's turning bad. You know, the weathermen are out here with their marks-a-lots starting to circle the map. You're exactly right, Doug.
Brendan
we have
comes
one
through.
Loss in the SEC, and let me tell you,
that's not
no
impossible.
Easy task to go 7-1. No easy task, but that's our lot. That's what happens when you don't put your foot on the throat of an opponent that you have in the 4th quarter and play your style of football.
All right, let me throw this one at you. What you have to do, I see this, we all do. You play that big opponent in the game 1. Now LSU's lost 5 openers in a row. You find out a lot about your team. The last 2 years when LSU lost by 1 in New Orleans to Florida State and then lost by a bunch last year in Orlando, they bounced back and still won 10 games. Robert Jones making a lot of good points about Kelly's a great coach when things are going right. But what you cannot do when things are going wrong is lose your cool as the head coach. But now what he's got to do between the loss Sunday night in Las Vegas and the next game, which they'll win by showing up against Nichols, he can't look like, Larry Bud Melman here just having a meltdown. Yeah. He's got to get that team together, but they spent a lot of money on that defensive coaching staff.
Sure did.
I got some other games I want to get to with y'all because y'all are smart. We're breaking this stuff down. This weekend, Doug, Auburn hosts Cal. We watched the Insomnia Bowl last year, they called it. Auburn won 14-10. I think I was down at Orange Beach watching it. It was at 1:30 or 2 when the Auburn Network signed off Sunday morning. But Cal's coming in. We're hearing their star running back likely isn't going to play. Again, I don't ever believe that. But, maybe he will. But what do you think about this? Auburn's a 10.5-point favorite.
Oh, I think it may have moved as high as 14.5.
Okay.
Little bit of a smelly fish. You heard me rant and complain, I think it was a week ago, about my objection to people who only can think linear. Last year, Auburn did this, or any team, and therefore it must be similar this year. It could not possibly be more different. And I don't want to make excuses about long travel and late hour games. Yeah. But it really is physiologically, it's a challenge for any team to travel cross country. And I watched the Big Ten this year. Some of these West Coast teams that spend their whole year on frequent flyer miles, at some point it takes a toll just a little bit. And sometimes these games, you just need a little bit to hurt you. And that'll even affect some of the betting lines, I would predict. But this, I don't know, Cal is going to have to show me that they have the kind of defense that can cause Peyton Thorne to regress in a mere 1 week from how good he looked last week. And I know it was Alabama A&M severely outmanned, but when you know. And the team I'm seeing is they have a wide receiver group, and Rivaldo Fairweather had a slow start. He's not going to stay that way. They've got a running back room that most of the SEC at this point would envy in those three backs. So I just believe it and plus Hugh Freeze is very comfortable. They're using his terminology, his system. Meanwhile, Cal struggled to produce much against UC Davis. Can that all change tomorrow afternoon? Of course, it's college football. And Cal, you have to respect them because teams out there, usually they do their homework. They have sophisticated schemes to get the ball to receivers in space. And this is a young Auburn secondary that'll get tested. But I think Auburn wants that kind of test. I think it'll be interesting for a quarter and a half or so. And Auburn will be too much for them with their speed at wide out. and the way Peyton Thorne looks like he's really got command of what they want him to do now.
Yeah.
So I see it kind of something like 38-17 Auburn, easily covering the spread. But I come to every one of these games. When you're an Auburn fan, you better bring a plan to be surprised and be hanging on and biting your nails late in the fourth quarter.
The last few years, you better be. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Put Georgia and Texas aside for a second. Put them aside. I watched most of that Texas game. Texas and Georgia Tech were my big bets this past week. And I had to sweat out that Georgia Tech late against Georgia State. But Texas cruised. They just cruised. Put them aside. The two most impressive teams that I saw in the SEC was Ole Miss and Auburn on last Saturday night.
Well, they didn't play anybody, Frank.
Well,
yeah, they didn't play anybody.
One was the continuation of last year, but the other one, I think Auburn. And I said this 3 weeks ago. I said my big surprise team of the SEC is going to be the Auburn Tigers, and I said you take that move from last year to this year. That opening game was a statement. It was absolutely a statement. Anybody that is trying to slough it off because it was the Hornets from the turnpike on Montgomery as you go from 85 to 65, they're right there in that corner. They don't know football. Hugh Freeze was okay, great. It was kind of a glorified scrimmage, but you know what? Y'all's offense was performing. Your defense, again, was playing well. I saw the statistics. They didn't move the ball at all. So anybody that's trying to whistle past the graveyard and think that this is going to be last year's Auburn team, better relook at it, because from what I saw switching, that's y'all got a great offense, and that is a hallmark of a Hugh Freeze team.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze in his second year, and I'm not ready to say hold my beer. Auburn is going to do something shocking, because everyone understands that when Auburn, I'm not skipping past Arkansas. They come to town. We could find out they could expose some problems that haven't been on film yet. But certainly when Oklahoma comes to Jordan-Hare Stadium, that will be some proof of concept up or down. And let you know a coach who not so long ago was winning championships almost every year called Auburn the most improved team in the league. Rob? No audio, Rob. You're muted.
Rob, you're muted, Rob. You've muted yourself, sir. Rob, your mic is
muted, dude.
I was trying to move something off the screen. Yeah. Matt Price is going to join us in just a minute from the Vitamin Shop for a couple of seconds. But I want to say this, too. I like Doug. Doug, you remember Auburn in 2004 when Oklahoma and Southern Cal played for the BCS championship. All we heard was, well, they beat Auburn at their stadium in the first game of the year before, 23-0.
Linear thinking.
I'm sorry. As Butch Thompson says, players are allowed to get better.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not going to skip past. It's early, but I can't believe I'm uttering these words. And I'm not saying 9 or 10 wins. I'm certainly not saying 10 plus wins for Auburn. I just like what I saw one game in, a very weak opponent. But a team that could, when we get to November, we could be talking about the most improved team in the SEC is Vanderbilt. I'm telling you that Diego Pavia, however you pronounce it, some writer compared him to former Penn State QB Trace McSorley, and I like Pavia's response. He said, "No, I don't really. They've been calling me a poor man's McSorley." He said, "I think the comparison that works a little better is me to Johnny Football."
Well, hey,
I like that bravado.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the Clint Eastwood movie when they brought him in to town to clean up things? The
High Plains Drifter.
I think it was High Plains Drifter, and there's another one in the mining town up in Colorado. But Diego Pavia, he doesn't get the respect, and he goes, I'm not surprised. I expect to win every time I take the field.
That kid is scary. You saw what he did to Auburn a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think both of y'all before Before we get to Matt Price and Ken Capps are all going to join us real quick, guys, there's a big one in Bank America Stadium, and we're going to get to it. Matt Price coming here with us, and I want to come back and talk about Tennessee traveling through I-40. It's not wide enough for all the Vol fans, but Matt Price, the Vitamin Shop, Oxford, Mississippi, Olive Branch, Mississippi. I put it in my coffee in the morning, this prebiotic that y'all have. It works. Your people in the store know what they're talking about. We're damn proud to have you as a sponsor of SEC Sideline Sports Network. Just a couple of minutes real quick. First, I got to ask you, who's your favorite team?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. I grew up in Missouri, longtime Memphis guy, so was a Tennessee volunteer guy for a while. Also lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, so was an Arkansas guy for a while, so it's tough.
You're a confused young man. A very confused young man.
He fit right in on this show.
Tough
Matt,
question.
Hey, tell us about the Vitamin Shop. Oxford, Mississippi, Olive Branch, Mississippi. We put the QR code up there every day. I love it. I love going. I was down in Oxford August 6th, went out there to the store off of Jackson Avenue. Students are back. Everybody's coming back to school. Just a couple of minutes. Tell people what they can get at the Vitamin Shop, how to get it, and why they need it.
Well, the Vitamin Shop at Oxford, Mississippi is our newest store. It's located at 210 Merchants Drive. It's between Dick's Sporting Goods and the Bath and Body Works. Beautiful store, great staff, back to school specials. And what we are really pushing right now is all the Vitamin Shop brand products, magnesium, zinc, pre-workout, post-workout, and anything creatine and protein. So anything from sun up to sundown. There is a wellness supplement, anything for a fitness or wellness enthusiast. Throughout the day, there is something there to just optimize your day, optimize your workout, optimize your life. Everything's on the shelf.
Yeah, and I love to swim, bike, run, do all this stuff. Here's the deal. When I feel like it, I'll work out. How about if you work out, you'll feel like it? You go to the Vitamin Shop. I use GOO a lot. You get a 60, 80-mile bike ride. I love GOO, chocolate outrage, okay? I love shot blocks. But this prebiotic, I'm telling you put a teaspoon in your coffee in the morning, it fights all that gut bacteria. Just one more thing. Tell people how important that stuff is. We hear about it all the time, but y'all don't hire anybody, I can tell when I go in the stores, that doesn't know what they're talking about. You're very selective, and it really matters, and it's important, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that works at the Vitamin Shop works for us is a truly a wellness enthusiast. They are true believers. They practice what they preach. So when you walk into one of our stores, you're going to be met with a smile, and you're going to be met with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of knowledge, and they're going to get you on your journey, on your path.
Matt Price, Justin Ross, the stores are open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'll get you back on again soon. Choose a team. I'm going to make you a Mizzou. If you're from Missouri, because Doug always says Missouri. So
Missouri, got to pronounce it that way.
Yeah, it is Missouri. But anyway, Matt Price, thank you for taking time.
Hey, before it goes, Rob, Matt, before you go, I'm going to go online and order some stuff. I'm getting back in the gym more lately. But can one of these protein drinks serve as a recovery drink for fans following a 3-hour football game? Would that work?
You're going to want to add some something with some B6 and B12 in there. Great for hangovers.
There you go.
I love it, man. Matt Price, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and we will definitely do it again. You or Justin or both of you, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, you bet. Doug, that's a great point. Doug, you got to take you want to give. Let's go with it, man.
Yeah, I promise. As we all three agree, anybody that's on the show very often, you better be nice to the producer, brother. He can hurt you. And Brent, I want to lift our man Brendan up. And there are probably not many Gator fans that are in the mood to hear this positivity from a dude in Birmingham who likes to say War Eagle. But I will say, if Coach, and it's a test of Billy Napier's composure that he's shown in the past. But right now, okay, ugly Miami loss. But like I think one of your guests yesterday said, we may be looking up in November and Miami As much as Gator fans and others don't want to see this happen, Florida State fans, Miami could be knocking on the door of being in the playoff.
I think it's a great. We've talked about hours about it this week, obviously on Buddy Martin's show. We've had huge numbers, sometimes over 1,000 people live in a few shows, and the thing is that Miami and Florida are very similar, right? The coaches hired minutes for days apart from each other, 8 days, and it's a real good snapshot as what can be done in 3 years and what hasn't been done in 3 years at Florida.
Fair,
and I think that's the comparison. And I think here's the thing. I think Miami's good. I just think Florida's really bad.
They may be, but here's the thread of hope I'm throwing, and it requires getting better and winning damn games. But the schedule going forward, if Florida can get to 4-1, not saying that's a cakewalk, this Saturday you never know with Sanford, but you better win that one and start feeling better about yourself. Texas A&M comes to town the 14th. Then you go to Mississippi State, very winnable. Nowhere in the SEC is a gimme with Jeff Lebby there, but if you get to 4-1, and then you got an off week, the 28th, before you play Gus Malzahn, beware the Rain Man. I'm telling you. But if you get to 4-1, then you're feeling awfully good about yourself with a road game to Tennessee, and that's what Billy Napier's got to do. Can you get to 4-1 and have fans at least start feeling better about themselves?
Hey, Doug.
I think I agree.
Doug, hang on a second, Brendan. I got to set you up. Doug, I don't know if that really cheered him up or depressed him more. God, that is
all I got.
None of that's good.
That's like the 29 Yankees. Yeah. That is a brutal freaking schedule. I mean, brutal.
Well, the rest of the schedule is for sure. Yeah.
God.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, get to 4-1. It feels a lot different than what happened against Miami.
Well, and I agree. Here's the thing: you look at last year, because we got 3 years to look at. This game last year was McNeese State. Now, Florida didn't score a touchdown. Okay, I mean, you know what I mean. And we're no better than last year. Now, DJ Lagway, Gatorade All-American superstar, Texas of all forevermore, athlete of the year. He's getting his start. The big knock is Billy, the offensive mind for that sort of a talent, because they rewind to AR and they're like, look what AR's been saying lately about what's going on. So it's about scheming, it's everything else. But for us as Gator fan, it's like, I've seen this before. I've been down this path. I'm tired of being excited and not.
You're at the point of show me. You want to show me now.
Yeah.
Hey, Duff, I was looking at. I uncovered a potential under the radar causal factor for LSU's bumpiness in recent years when they've lost some games they should have won. And I looked through the roster, and you need more players, Duff, that have French Cajun last names like Early Doucette, Fournette, Tyrann
Hokey Gajon.
You got a couple on your roster. There's not many on your roster. Plenty of them are from the state of Louisiana.
Nussmeier is way too German. And by the way,
get some Cajun French guys on the roster, and you'll start winning more.
We need that. And by the way, when UCF and Texas A&M is considered your easy part of the schedule, good luck. Holy mackerel. And by the way, we haven't talked about that A&M. I told y'all I didn't think A&M look, I got to give it to them. They did play well, but I had a feeling Notre Dame was going to go in there and win that ball game. And look, they were getting points.
Notre Dame was physical.
Yeah, they absolutely. And look, my loss is their gain. Denbrock is a fabulous offensive coordinator. But hey, look, I see Ken's on. The team that really was a juggernaut, looked like a division of Panzer tanks, was Texas going through. And look, Colorado State's not some palooka. They can play football. Let me tell you something. Texas looked like a hot knife going through butter I watched every play of that game because I had Texas. That was one of my big bets. Man, that was never even close. And kudos to Arch for his coming out
Oh, he looked
party. His
good.
coming
He looked
out
good.
fast. And look, a Manning scored a rushing touchdown. If you have that on your bingo card, drink your bourbon, because that doesn't happen a lot.
Hey, Ken Caps in the Hook'em Hut.
Ken, don't peak early, man, for the big game tomorrow.
Look, the only guest that we ever have with a Longhorn on the wall, and that's not Bevo, but obviously they were acquaintances, maybe colleagues, associates, but love the background. Man, it is Friday, college football roundtable. A lot going on. Texas going to the big house. What a game in week 2. Colorado State wasn't bad. Michigan's the reigning national champ. Is that the correct way to say it? Reigning, not defending?
Yeah, I like that better.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no question about it. This game feels exactly like Texas going out to play Alabama and Tuscaloosa last year. Texas rolled in its first game last year, and just as it did this year, you're right. Ewers staked the Horns to a 38-0 lead. That great game last week. But then when Arch comes in, it's like the Beatles at Shea Stadium. It's like everybody went crazy. Exactly. We need. I think Bo Carter was there. He could tell us about that Beatles concert. But seriously, it was so crazy with Arch. He comes in, 3 plays, boom, 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 touchdown. He throws a touchdown pass, and a couple of drives later, it's 4th down and 1 from the 1. About to score again, and besides pitching it or anything, they just say, Arch, take it in, and Frank is right. Arch just bowls over everybody and takes it in, and he scores 2 touchdowns. And my first thought was, I hope Grandpa and Cooper were up there in a suite somewhere, just having a little toddy and toasting their boy, because he came out and, man, he was zinging that ball too. And it was a great coming out for him. But this is a whole new ball game, just like it is going to Tuscaloosa. I mean, this is the big house. Texas has never played in the big house ever. This is only the second time, believe it or not, only the second time that Texas and Michigan have played. The other time they played, I was there, and that was the 2005 Rose Bowl, when Vince Young had his big coming out party, and Texas came back to beat Michigan 38-37 on a walk-off field goal by Dusty Magnum. Vince Young scored 5 touchdowns in that game, only 1 passing, but 4 running touchdowns. And that was, we thought we had just seen the best Rose Bowl of all time then, but then, of course, next year was the Texas USC game.
Yeah. Well, okay, Jack, good-looking grandson, Frank, and Doug. And I don't know where Frank went. We've lost Frank. We're going to get him back. But hey, Ken, I got to ask you this. And Doug, I mentioned this to you and Brendan, and Frank knows this. Ken, you told me this at SEC Media Days, that Texas fans aren't used to these big-time night atmospheres week after week at DKR, and they've got to get used to it. Well, certainly this is a road game, but you're playing Georgia in Austin this year. You're playing Florida in Austin this year. The 40 acres is going to be on fire. Or I'm sorry, journalistically speaking, the 40 acres are going to be on fire, because I don't want to be corrected by you or Bo. I'm going to get a memo.
Hey.
Well, I do have to let Ken know. Ken, I'm a longtime Saints fan, and Arch's first touchdown, when he ran to the line, kind of scrambled a little bit, and then found his receiver out to the right, that looked like Grandpa to me, circa 1972. I'm telling you, and look, he has a command. I actually know a good buddy of mine, fraternity brother of mine. His daughter went out with Arch here in town in New Orleans. They say he is such a bright, articulate young man, but that is not full of himself. Which, I mean, when you're the number one recruit in the nation, it would be hard not to be full of himself. But he has a humbleness, which I think has allowed him to be 2 years as an understudy. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you saw this. Ohio State's now trying to claim Quinn Ewers like they tried to claim Joe Burrow, because of his time up at Ohio State. I say keep your paws off of Ewers and Burrow. But when Ewers' time is done, you are going to have an incredibly sophisticated, talented quarterback step in, but one that plays within himself and has a pro arm. Texas is set up for years. And I watched every play of that game. Y'all's offensive line doesn't get talked enough about. They manhandled that line of scrimmage. Texas could have scored 100 if they wanted to. I watched it.
Well, and I think that's what it's going to boil down to this week as well, up at the Big House. The offensive line is going to have to the offensive line is going to have to protect Ewers. The Michigan D. They make a big deal in Michigan that Michigan lost 13 players to the NFL this past year. Well, Texas lost 11. Okay, so there's been a big loss on both teams. But the offensive line for Texas did look good. The defensive line for Texas looked good, even though they lost, Tyrone Sweat and Byron Murphy to the pros, and both of them had great games this past week as well. But Michigan's going to try to run the ball, so Texas is going to have to, be ready to defend against that. The one advantage I think that Texas does have a little bit is they do have Ewers at quarterback, very, very experienced. And, of course, Michigan literally has virtually no experience at quarterback. Davis Warren is the quarterback right now. He's a walk-on. Jack Tuttle, who was the transfer in from Indiana, was hurt, did not play at all last week. They've got another quarterback, Orjai, who played a little bit last week. And so if Texas can just get after those inexperienced quarterbacks, I think that'll give them a good advantage. But then what does it always come down to? It always comes down to turnovers, and it always comes down to the kicking game. And I think that Texas needs to go up there and be ready to know that Michigan's won 23 straight games up there, so they're no matter who they're playing, they're going to play tough. And Texas is about a 7-point favorite, but I throw that out the window. I think it's going to be a very tough game. I think that Michigan can't win that game. It looks like on paper that Texas should win that game, but I'm not going to get overconfident about anything.
Texas wins by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's my
okay. Well, Frank, I'm glad you're that confident.
I see it.
Doug's got a take he wants to give, and then after we do that, we want to get on a topic Brendan and I were talking about before the show. Is the SEC Dynasty in jeopardy? And we're going to explain what we mean by that. Doug, your take.
Well, and Ken will love reacting to this, but I think the narrative, and it may be, with apologies to my dear friend Duff, circling back to that USC LSU game, it may be that the body of work we saw with USC Sunday is useful is informative is the word I'm after, with what a cliche that we have too many of us here down in the Deep South have bought into that might be flawed, and that is it's possible for a team outside the Deep South to go get players that are big and physical, and when you do bring them in, to put them in strength and conditioning and make them even more big, physical, and fast. And you saw some of that in evidence in the way USC played, and my good LSU friends have been fair and said, yeah, LSU's physical. They're built that way, but USC was willing to, punch back and played pretty darn physical when it mattered too. Yeah. And I don't just mean pass protection. So that has been the probably unfair, Ken, narrative about teams like Texas, to a degree Oklahoma, that they play finesse football. The players come from these 7-on-7 camps and they just want to fling the ball 60 times a game. That may have been true in certain games, but what Rick the great Rick Neuheisel, you've had him on here before, I believe, Rob.
Yeah,
said, I love listening to Neuheisel. He's just entertaining. He said what Kirby Smart did was build Alabama at Georgia.
Yes.
And now what Sarkisian has done at Texas is build Alabama at Texas in terms of big physical dominant play. But what you add to that was Sark. That's why I picked Texas to win the SEC this year. The guy is a master at creating offense and through the air, but not just through the air. And so I think Texas, it's an interesting first half, but similar to Georgia Clemson, I think Texas just runs away with it in the second half.
Doug, you and I could have run through some of the holes Texas's line opened up against the Rams. My God, there was in fact, Texas's running back, supposedly for being down 2 running backs, it didn't matter. They literally had about 4 or 5 foot clearance on so many of these traps and these runs. I'm telling you, man, the sound I hear, I could turn down the sound of watching that Texas game, and I could hear the soundtrack from Save It Private Ryan when the Panzers are like squeaking their wheels outside of town. That's what's coming, boys. I'm telling you, Texas.
Well, let me give you
Saturday's a must win. Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, let me give you guys an interesting stat about that game. And you're right, Frank. 8 different people ran the ball for Texas last Saturday, and 11 different receivers caught the ball. Now, I don't know how many people are playing offense at Texas, but I mean, the ball was just spread around so crazy, and every one of them had success. And you're right. I mean, Colorado State had one of the best offenses in the country last year, and it was completely shut down. And Jay Norvell is from the University of Texas, their head coach, and so he knows how to play the game. Their quarterback, the Colorado State quarterback, is from Aledo, Texas, which is right outside of the Metroplex.
Yeah.
He won 2 state championships here in the state, and he was just rocked and socked all day long.
That was no Palooka. That was no Palooka.
That's right. And so and Tim Horton, their big wide receiver that Sark talked about all week and bragged about because he tried to recruit him to Texas, was held to 5 catches for 30 yards. And so, again, that was a great first start, but still going to the big house where they've won 23 straight games. I think it'll be. I mean, like I said, Texas should win, but there's always that fluke play, and and you can't throw any dumb interceptions. Ewers has done that in the past. And but I still have confidence that Texas will pull off the win. But I'm not just going to say they're going to just win going away with it at all.
Ken, it sounds silly this early, but I could make the case that this is a must-win game for Texas at Michigan. It's really not technically, but the reason I use that hyperbole is that if Sarkisian and this team has the benefit of being able to relax and you don't play with as much anxiety and desperation that you've already got one loss, then the schedule sets up so beautifully on paper for Texas. When they go to it's a neutral site with Oklahoma, correct?
Dallas,
right?
And that'll be the revenge factor at play. I think they beat Oklahoma, but it'll be a game. And you host Georgia. That's going to be a Donnybrook.
I cannot wait.
I think Georgia right now would probably be maybe a 3-point favorite there because Georgia's got that much respect, but that's winnable. But you can drop that game. I've said I don't see a single – Georgia's making me rethink this, but I don't see a single SEC team with fewer than 2 regular season losses, not just conference losses, just it's that tough. It's that tough. But I would like to see – Texas wants to see being able to get to the meat of their schedule with a couple of mulligans in their back pocket and you can have 2 losses, but if you beat Alabama they don't play Alabama. If you beat everybody
Georgia,
except maybe Georgia on your schedule, you are sitting pretty for a probably top 4 playoff.
That game is
Yeah.
a remote drop, man. That is going to be a must-watch game. Holy
All
cow.
right, they're going to be. Let's get to this question, and this was brought up. What a great panel: Doug Dean in Birmingham, Frank Duffy in New Orleans, Ken Capps in Dallas, Fort Worth, in the Plex. I want to get everybody here's take on this. Is the SEC Dynasty in jeopardy? Last year, right now, the national championship is on loan. It's a rental to Michigan. The SEC feels like we own it. But
Thanks a lot,
game.
Nick Saban.
Yeah, this is a big ass game tomorrow. And and I don't know, by the way, Ken, have you ever done a story, interviewed our good friend, howdy folks, Big Tex here at the Texas State Fair, fried Twinkies and Oreos and fried butter. That's right. Look, this is huge. But the reason I bring this up is Frank and I and Doug and Dave Tompkins had a chance to talk with Tyler Siskey. He played at Auburn, finished up at Troy, coached at Ole Miss, coached at Alabama. He's in Oxford now. He knows football. He made a comment that the 2 and 3 deep depth charts in these SEC teams for so long had been so good, and those guys were sticking around to be developed. Now with the portal, a lot of them are leaving and going somewhere else. So, where are the clouds, Joni Mitchell? Where's the depth now? That's a question. I'll start with Ken, then Doug, then Frank. Is the SEC, or is this maybe the canary in the coal mine? But I think there's something to it. Oh, muted Ken. Ken, we can't hear you. Doug, you go ahead.
So you're saying you have the audacity, I love provocateur Rob, to say the SEC is going the way of the dodo bird. Is that
No.
what
Just a little bit of a challenge for supremacy. It's kind of like a young lion taking on the older lion in the pride.
Yeah. What college football needed, and you're not going to find an Alabama or Georgia fan that wants to agree with this. It's easier for an Auburn guy. But we needed the Big Ten and a few others to start showing up again and playing big boy football. And you got that last year. Players and coaches, but heavily players win football games. And Alabama had that Michigan game in hand to not hadn't put anybody away. It was a one-score game. But what Alabama ran into was between the two quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy made some insanely athletic, brilliant up-here plays, and he got the lead back for Michigan. And then what you had is Milroe is still learning in huge games. Go back to the Iron Bowl. That everybody wants to show the 4th and 31, and rightly so. But prior to that, Milroe had – sorry about the ambient noise in the background. Milroe had not one, but 2 times he went over the line of scrimmage before he threw the ball. So he was still learning, and he got, just didn't have enough supporting cast around him to pull that one out. But I think what we get now, and let's not write off the most powerful teams year in, year out in the ACC or the Big 12. It's players. If you can put together a roster of high school elite players and fill it in with portal guys, then why can't – there's no reason the team from one of the other Power Fours, not named the SEC, can have a big year, and then anything can happen in this new playoff format.
It's sorry, Rob, but the question is posed in the sense of because of NIL, because of transfer portal, because of all the opportunities now. Yeah. If you got the money, you got the donors, you got the cash, you can pay to play now, and we're seeing. I think we're seeing some more parity in college football. And we talk to people all over the place, and we're seeing these smaller teams starting to make a difference. Do you all think that is I guess the question is the SEC dynasty sort of over in the sense of in the next 5 years, and also with the development of AI, which is a very, very important thing to know, is which school is going to do this the best, and Auburn is leading the way. Is that with these things in play, are we just going to be talking about like Western Kentucky playing for the national? You know what I mean? Like,
I think it'll be 60-40. I think what you'll see is
because we went from the
over
ACC being almost dead to now we've got what's going on?
The years of my take is, and the data backs it up. The era of an SEC team winning 8 out of 10 national championships or 9 out of 10. I think that's over because these other teams are getting good, like Texas, Michigan, and Ohio State's not going away. But I think it'll still be like 60-40 over 10 years. SEC.
But is that the best way to like measure is like the bowl games? Because I always feel like that's a
forget the bowl games.
Yeah, I feel
Look
like
at the bowl
look strength of schedules and
I don't care what a 7th ranked ACC team does beating an SEC team that didn't care to be there. Means nothing.
I agree with you. See, I agree with you.
Ken Capps is trying to get back in with us, but
I don't see his camera. Ken, your internet is no good. You got to go outside wherever you were last time.
No bueno.
Sucks in the Hook'em Hut.
All right, let me say this, guys, about the SEC. Look at Oregon, what they're doing. They're trying to build it out there. Now they're in the Big Ten. I think week in and week out playing tougher competition. Iron sharpens iron. It says so in the good book. Look, SEC is just getting started as not a conference guy, but SEC has some powerhouses. Robert Jones, smart guy, okay? But, the one thing is, gentlemen, that I see in the SEC is there's a lot of money being spent on NIL, but they're spending a lot. I watched something on ACC Network last night remember in the early 90s, Georgia Tech and Virginia, that conference made up. You had George Welsh, a naval grad at Virginia, and that great game in 1990 against Georgia Tech with Pat Swilling, the great safety, Coleman Rudolph, or Marco Coleman. God, you're in Atlanta, Frank. I know this, but as an Auburn guy, growing up playing Georgia Tech, Bobby Dodd Stadium, Grant Field, Frank, you know this, Doug, you know it. That Florida used to play Georgia Tech every year. That was one of Florida's non-conference games. I think the interest in college football, guys, Lee Fitting, I don't know him, but he said this, executive producer, ESPN Sports, about 3 years ago. He goes, when we go to this expanded 12-team playoff, November, all of a sudden, people are going to be paying attention in Tallahassee to the Apple Cup Bowl out between Washington and Washington State and all these games around the country because everybody in the top 25 has a chance. Frank Duffy, follow up on what I said and Doug said and Brendan said.
Totally agree. The 12-team playoff, it's going to absolutely keep everybody's eyes in contention. And look at me. I think my team's got a shot. In years past, I'd be done if I lost that first one. I'd be done. Look, all I gotta do is go 7-1. I'm in the damn thing. But let me talk about the SEC prominence. Let me answer that question real quick. Look, remember when Bear Bryant used to be able to stockpile scholarships at 125, and I will take them because I don't want them going to Auburn. They would like stockpile them. And remember we thought, that's going to hurt the SEC. We're now down to 85. No, it didn't. The SEC still had its salad days. We're still going to have our salad days. Because, look, other than Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, and look, frankly, Vanderbilt has no excuse. They got as much NIL money. They got old money. And look, we can all play in this game. I don't see it changing at all. If you give me, I get to pick the top 4 conferences, forget the Pac-2. I pick the top 4 conferences or everybody else, and you give me a bet. Do I get the field bet or an SEC team winning the national championship? Brother, my cash at the casino at Caesars on Canal Street is going to be on the SEC every year. And now that we got Texas and Oklahoma in, holy mackerel. I mean, good luck trying to win a natty with us. And I'm telling you, Michigan is going to lose a lot. You watch this game against Texas. Their continuity from last year to this year, I watched Michigan because I bet Michigan and they didn't cover. I'm telling you, these two things are different. So, I think with Texas and OU and our remaining SEC teams, it is ours to lose the natty every year going forward.
You know what I've observed? Great take, Frank. Welcome back, Ken. What I've observed too, I think psychologically fan bases are slow. They're not caught up with the new reality. And what I mean by that is
Totally agree.
It's silly this early in the year. You get one tough loss to just have this deject. Well, we'll wait till next year. No, it's different now. It's not the 2-team or even the 4-team reality in the playoff. And so, yeah, now if you just think your team is bad and your despair is based on what you're seeing in terms of a poor team that got a lot of preseason hype, but it turns out they're not very good, that's one thing. But I think fans should keep their chin up and keep believing in your guys until you can't any longer when you get to 3 losses. But it won't be the most shocking thing in the world if a 3-loss SEC team sneaks in the playoff come late November.
And to your point, Doug, Florida State still has a shot even with 2 losses.
They do. They do. Why not?
If
Why not?
Florida State runs the table and wins the ACC, which they very easily could do,
they'll get some sympathy votes.
Absolutely. Look, you're not even out of it 0-2. That's the beauty.
Fans have not caught up with that.
Hey, Frank, Ken, we're going to call Florida State. They have the Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber chance, but I digress. But Ken, your
but
thoughts
it's still
about all this-
mathematically possible.
Yes, you're right. There's a chance. Lloyd Christmas. I mean, I'm with you because I love Mike Norvell as a coach, but you got to quit harping on not getting in the playoff. Ken Capps, jump in here. Football Writers Association of America. You got a master's in journalism from the Medill College of Journalism at Northwestern. The big picture, SEC Dynasty, all these other schools around the country, they're getting in the mix, but you're bringing Texas and OU into the SEC. I think the conference strengthened the wall and the moat and the barrier around it. But I do think Frank and Doug are right. Man, they're coming, and they ain't slowing down. I'm talking about everybody in America. And, God, it's great for the interest and the passion of college football. Again, go back and look in the early 90s. The ACC was on top of the world. Forget in the last 9 years, Clemson and Georgia have played for the national championship 7 times. Clemson, 4, won 2, lost 2. People are trying to write off Clemson like they're a has-been. Dabo's going to quit. He's going to get it's going to hit him like Saban with the hurry-up offenses. Dabo ain't done. I don't think he is. But, Ken, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look at it. I mean, it's in just these past 2 weeks, even with people losing these games, all we can talk about is, are they in and out of the playoffs already? And I mean,
that's a great point.
Either and some people, like you're already done, and then other people saying, no, you're not done. And so it's changed the whole dynamic of the game. It has added more excitement, and it's going to be one of those things where every week it's going to be, well, are they in and out of the playoffs, or is this game going to make them playoff contenders, or has this knocked them out completely? So I think it's added. I mean, I've been my expectations have been exceeded by what the adding this 14-team playoff is going to mean to the game. I thought it wouldn't really come up until later on in the season. I didn't know that the first game of the season, people would start talking about, well, you're done, and in week 0 you're done, and then not so fast. And the poor Aggies, we're talking about, my gosh, they're already done, and wanting Elko, calling Elko Jimbo 2.0 just because he lost one game. I mean, that's what they were saying last week. That's ridiculous.
That might be the most Aggie thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Ken
it's
was
hard.
on the Monday.
It's got to be hard to be an Aggie right now with Texas riding high.
Ken Capps was on the Monday morning show, and it was a wild one. Coach Ellis Johnson was with us. He's going to be back on Monday to break down the games. A truth broker he is. Ken was on. Ryan Higgins. God, it was a lot of fun. And one of the things that we talked about, it was I thought, and Lauren Meadows was on with us as well, was all these games and people, panicking. You got to be like the pilot who's flying a 777 from Atlanta Hartsfield Airport to Heathrow in London. You lose an engine halfway across the Atlantic. Well, I've got 3 others. That's how you got to be. You can't panic. And I like what Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson says about going from the dugout, walking to the plate. He says, no matter what's happening, don't let the moment be bigger than it is. And I think this, God, y'all just articulated these points brilliantly. And I love that Brendan is brilliant at getting us on topic. And I wish we could have over on the side, kind of like PTO on ESPN, kind of a list of what we want to cover, because this is evoking so many brilliant
you don't
thoughts.
get to do no more work, Rob. Stop. Shut your mouth. I've had it with you this week. You're pissing me off. No more. Hey, can you do this? And the thing with the thing.
Show me the money.
Yeah,
I'll just write it
You're
down
cut
on
off.
paper.
You're cut off now.
Rob,
Okay.
I want to put this to Ken and anybody that wants to comment, but man, we're going to have to limit the Texas Longhorn Love Fest at some point, Ken, but it's fun right now with the game tomorrow. But it seems like 20 years mentally since Sarkisian had those personal demons at USC. And he, Coach Saban, like he's done for others, he gets an assist, sort of giving a second or a third opportunity to Sark. And now to listen to Sarkisian, it's a side of him I didn't know, and it might be new, frankly, in his own persona, that he's talking about. We don't just sign any player. We look at character. We think character and the fit with our program really matters. Now, I want to see him pass on a high 5-star that maybe he thinks he can reshape the young man's attitude. But that's admirable, and the way he's managing his team, I think it transmits into how they play and how they can deal with pressure in big games. So Sarkisian is making his case for, can he challenge Kirby Smart and a few others, and this season will be an early test of all of that.
Well, and it's also the other word he uses a lot is culture, and he's not going to, he's not going to, at least the way I watch all of his press conferences and listen, try to read between the lines, and, he's not going to bring in some kid that does not fit the culture, that is going to be a troublemaker. To be real honest, Tom Herman had a lot of troublemakers on his team, and it took Sark at least 1 year to flush them all out. And I mean, there were a lot of people that left that team not on their own volition after that. After Herman was fired. And Sark is, I mean, just like Kiffin, just like all of other Saban's, former coaches, and they're all following the Saban process, and it worked.
The three top programs in the SEC right now are all from the Saban coaching tree, and
Correct.
2 of them were reclamation projects: Sark and Lane Kiffin.
Correct.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, look at those 2 programs. Look at Texas and Ole Miss right now. Look, it's kind of interesting. Kirby really never had those problems before, personally, but yet his team is having a lot of issues with the police off the field. So in a lot of ways, all 3 of those Saban disciples have been tested. And by the way, if y'all are sensing I'm being a little bit more positive about Nick Saban, I've made my peace with Nick Saban. When he
I don't believe it.
when he stared down Pat McAfee on that set, we're all good. We're all good. Yeah. I'm gonna invite Nick Saban. I'm gonna invite Nick Saban to my tailgate for gumbo when the Tigers have their 25th anniversary celebration, and in 4 years from now, the 2003 national champion. Nick's finally welcome at my gumbo spot, because we have now buried the hatchet. When he looked Pat McAfee up and down like he was the last biscuit on the ark, that did it for me.
A little thread, a little footnote to watch this year, and I didn't realize this. I'm sure Rob did, because it involves a Manning name. But the Manning Passing Academy, you've got of the 16 SEC teams this year, 11 of the QBs have gone through the Manning Academy, Passing Academy. And it shows, and you can guess who they are, all the best ones. Peyton Thorne did not go through it for whatever reason. but maybe he's going through the Hugh Freeze passing academy. But
Ken Austin.
you could do worse. But these guys, they get in camp, they give these quarterbacks each other's contact information, and most of them, according to Brady Cook on air yesterday, talk to each other, text during the year, unless they're playing each other that week. And so that to me is a fun thing, and the legend and lore of the Manning family just only grows larger.
Let me throw something at you. Gary Harris was on the show with us yesterday. Tuscaloosa, he's on every Thursday. Tide 100.9 does Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr. He said, last Saturday at the Western Kentucky game, I'm up in the press box, and there's Nick Saban. He goes, we don't stay for the game. He got on a plane, flew back to Tuscaloosa, was up in the press box. He said, making the rounds. He said he's completely different, so relaxed, cracking jokes. And, I just want to say thoughts and our prayers for the repose of the soul of his mother, who passed away sometime between Sunday. Man, he's the coach. He's going to be around. He's going to be a voice, I think, for a lot of good things in college football, because he's got to, like you said, he stared down Pat McAfee, kind of like, so you drank, as Ron Higgins said, you drank 30 beers in Dublin. Good for you. I mean, like, what's the point?
He's the elder statesman now, Rob.
Yeah, if we ever get a college football commissioner, it's got to be him.
I agree. Ken and gentlemen, like and I was kidding with Brendan. I'm just like, I love having these topics because Brendan will give them to me. He's really good at getting things that'll evoke a lot of passion and thoughts. And
buttering you up. He's buttering you up, Brendan. Look out. Here it comes.
He does it. Yeah, here it comes. Here comes the ask.
No, there's no ask. There's praise. I'm lavishing praise on Brendan. But
my dad's Buddy Martin, right?
Yeah. So,
okay.
But I'm just saying, here's the cool thing. What this discussion today, Ken and Frank and Doug and Brendan and everybody watching. First off, thanks everybody for watching. Go to our sidelines.live page and support our sponsors like Hewlett and Dunn and Tom Martin's Body Shop, House Industries, all the great people that we have out here. We're here with these sponsors and ones we're working on right now. Let me say that the interest, like you get fans of different schools. We're an SEC-centric show, but it's the tectonic plate theory, like on a fault, like a San Andreas fault. What happens in the SEC or what happens in the Big Ten or the Big 12, there are reverberations everywhere. Ken, you're in Dallas, and, man, they've got a new league out there. They're going to be looking to form a new identity. We hadn't talked about a game tomorrow. We talked about it a lot earlier this week. Arkansas goes for a midday game to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. How much pride, Mike Gundy, they're going against these Razorbacks who looked good against UAPB, but scoring 10 out of 10 touchdowns with every drive. What do you think happens in Stillwater? And that's a pride game, Sam Pittman and the Fighting Petrinos.
Well, you know what? That's a family affair here in the Caps house, because my son went to Oklahoma State, and some other members of our family went to Arkansas. So there's a house divided here amongst me and my wife's family. But I think Oklahoma State handles them pretty handily. I don't think Arkansas. I think Sam Pittman, this may be his last year, and I think Oklahoma State, and especially with Ollie Gordon, I think they're going to handle him pretty handily at home.
Does your son wear a mullet like Gundy?
Not anymore.
All business in the front, party in the back.
Yeah, I tell you, when I used to go up there to the Stilly to go to the football games when he was in school there, they have a pretty good party atmosphere up there. But no, he's got a nice haircut and a nice job here in Dallas now, and a business degree from Oklahoma State. So my money and my son went to Oklahoma. I have to say.
Well, Ken, a lot of people don't know about Stillwater, but that's a passionate fan base. Good God. And I know that T. Boone Pickens gave him around $350 million. Yeah. He started out as an oil geology studies major at Texas A&M and finished at Oklahoma State. But I like you said, this is what Doug and I and Frank deal with on this side of the Mississippi River. Is I'm remarried to a Vol for life. Our oldest daughter now, Mallory, Alabama grad, and my 3 other kids, Orange and Blue Auburn. And Doug's got 2 daughters, went to Auburn, 1 to Alabama. And that's what makes, again,
girl
these
wants to throw her
rivalries
life
so damn
away.
fun.
Girl wants to throw
Yep.
her life away. Let her throw her life away. Right?
My daughter was going to go look at Tuscaloosa. I took her keys away from her.
But
Allison knows I'm kidding.
yeah, and that's the thing about it. That's why these rivalries are so much fun. I mean, Ken, you've got Cowboys, you got the Pokes, you've got the Razorbacks, and man, these folks in Arkansas, Texas, they're so excited because it gets them in the Texas media day in and day out talking about Arkansas, and they recruit so heavily down there. All right, we'll wrap up here with some closing things from everybody. And I made.
Hey, Rob.
Okay,
I gotta inject. Blind Squirrel Sports. Thank you for that comment. That's exactly how we feel. He said, what I love about the show is it feels like a bunch of friends talking sports. That's exactly what we're doing, Rob.
Yeah,
that's what we are.
Yeah, and it's genuine, and we've got a great producer who keeps us on track. And I'm going to tell you something. The SEC, and again, we play schools outside the conference, but I just feel the interest in college football because of the 12-team playoff. Like you say, week 1, Florida State, maybe now they're desperate to win every game from here on out. But there's so many big matchups. Give us a score, Ken. Michigan in Texas tomorrow.
3-2 on the score? 3-2.
3-2. Yeah, I've seen that before.
I think it's going to be. Gosh, that's a tough one. I would say it's going to be like 34-21 Texas. That'd be my guess.
So much for the Michigan defense. I think Texas rolls. That offensive attack is coming of age, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 34-14, 34-17.
Okay.
I'm right there with you, Doug. 42-21. In fact, I'm going to have lunch at the Bienville Club in 2.5 hours. My first stop on the way, I'm stopping in at Caesar's Palace. I'm going to get the odds -20, which will probably give me about a 10-1 payoff. I'm taking Texas -20. They win by 3 touchdowns.
All right, here's a text question. I got a couple of questions here. I'm going to throw them at you. Howard Sprague, Mount Airy, North Carolina. What do you think will happen with Tennessee and NC State and Charlotte? Anyone want to take a gander at that? That's from Howard
I don't know,
Sprague.
but Rob, one of y'all is going to have to pronounce Nico's last name, but Tennessee.
Iamaleava.
Thank you. Tennessee's QB has just dominated the media attention. We will see how long that lasts, but it's got to be exciting for the Vols.
North Carolina State was unimpressive in their opener. I think Tennessee wins and covers.
I'd like to make
Ken?
my score prediction because I've continuously skipped because I don't speak as much because I'm clicking. But I will take all the money, thank you very much, at Michigan 31, Texas 27.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
Shocker.
All right.
Now, here's
Rob, you got to have Monday accountability for all of us on these picks.
I know.
It's all recorded.
Then, Brendan, you got to go get the money line. If you feel that way, you better get the money line because it's probably plus 180, plus 190. You double your money.
I know. I can see what it is.
2 more. Kentucky hosting South Carolina. And I want someone to give me a pick on that one. And there's the other one. Last year, it snuck up on everybody because Jalen Milroe, in my opinion, was suspended for that game after the loss to Texas. And it was a real close game. It was like a 35, 38-point line. Bama won 24-10. I think they've circled that game. A lot of the players that were on that team, all of them probably have. They got that game. Does Alabama cover against South Florida? And what happens in South Carolina and Kentucky, an early conference game? Anybody take a gander?
Well, it's hard to know what Kentucky's got because the game got stopped in the third quarter because of all the weather issues. Slow to start, stopped it in the third quarter. I think South Carolina is really going to take a step back because of not having Spencer Rattler. I think he was a big part, obviously, of their offense the last 2 years. So I would lean to Kentucky, but you got to be careful on this bet. Kentucky's a pig and a poke. We really don't know what they've got because it was only a halftime game.
Okay.
I wanted to inject is that we'll watch as the season progresses, circling back to that Auburn Alabama A&M game, and this happened in another game, as I recall. But at halftime, the referees went rogue, talked to the two coaches, and said, "We want to run 10-minute quarters the second half." And the funniest post I saw about the coaches poll dropping Auburn down from 30 to 13 points. Someone posted, "Well, they must want to see Auburn play a 60-minute game first." And so I'm sorry, but I don't. But for Vegas, for fans who bought the tickets, for getting fourth stringers some playing time, I don't want referees to have that much power.
I agree.
I agree.
It's bullshit. It happened, but let's keep an eye on those zebras going forward. But I think Kentucky does make a statement. They've got the players, and I use my head coaching first name trend line. The name Shane just do not strike fear in me, and I think Shane Beamer, I hope he has a good year and gets a contract extension, but I just don't think South Carolina is built to play that game on the road quite yet. And then Alabama is going to roll. It was a different type of turmoil. Saban rolled the dice and benched Milroe for the South Florida game.
Oh yeah.
Different ball game this year. I like what Kalen DeBoer is doing. Very different, a little more of a laid back than a scream at your players type of coach, if that's not unfair to say about Saban. But yeah, I don't think Alabama is going to have any trouble tomorrow.
Well, I will tell you, that fourth quarter in Tampa, in that storm that Alabama played at USF, from where they were to almost being one play away from being in the national championship game, is crazy how far that distance was. Because they looked horrible against USF that game.
Yeah, they did. Look, Cat Fan says Kentucky 38, South Carolina 13.
I go with that.
We long for the days of Kay Wood Lefford and Ralph Hacker on the UK Sports Network.
I just don't think there's going to be that much offense. I think it's a defensive kind of game. I think Kentucky's going to win, but I think it's 21, 16-ish. I think it'll be a tighter game than anyone thinks it is.
I'm with Brendan. Brendan, do you know what the line is on that game?
I thought it was 9, but excuse me. Thought it was. I have to look. It changes. Today's changes. The lines change.
You got Gamecocks.
Gents, I got to bounce. I don't know.
Bye,
Doug. See you Monday. All right, Doug Dean. Appreciate it. All right, let's throw this one. The one, Ken, your thought on that South Florida game. USF is trying to build a program. Alex Golish, the coach at South Florida, he came from Tennessee. He's trying to build something down there. I don't see Alex Golish and USF going in. I don't see them covering the 31-point line tomorrow in Tuscaloosa, Ken. Just me.
Ken's thinking.
Yeah, we're losing him.
We're losing you. There you go, Ken. Try now.
Ken, can South Florida cover against Alabama tomorrow?
He's muted.
Yeah,
I can answer that for Ken. Yeah. No way. Yeah, Alabama's going to be on a mission this year. Trust me. And look, the feel of the Alabama sideline, I don't know if y'all saw some of the pictures, is totally different. Saban not being there, those guys are like all of a sudden like unchained. Holy mackerel. They were having a blast out there because, again, obviously, Saban always had them under the thumb. Look for Alabama when they can run up scores. They're going to run up scores this year. I think Alabama on these big high spreads, they're going to cover a lot of these spreads. And look, the best bet last week, a buddy of mine called me up, asked me to go to the window and bet it for him in Vegas. It was brilliant. He said, go give me Ole Miss minus 46.5 because Ole Miss watched what Texas and Georgia did, and they want to keep up with the Joneses. They are going to absolutely kill Furman, and they did. It was like 75. I texted him back.
76-0.
Yeah, I texted him back. I said, I don't want to jinx you, but that might have been the smartest bet I've ever seen in my 63 years on this planet was how you're thinking on Ole Miss doing this. I think a lot of SEC teams, because of now having more of us in here, this keep up with the Joneses mentality, especially during recruiting, you're going to see a lot of high scoring games, and they're going to be putting the foot on the accelerator. So I think Alabama covers and covers big.
Well, Ken, join us if you can, if you can come through. I think every school is trying to score as many points. This is like in the 80s when Nebraska would win 70-3 every game. That's what they used to do. Everybody's going to start piling up the points because it's a beauty pageant. That's what it is. Ken Capps, you're a writer, Football Writers of America. Your thoughts on that? Is that what you're seeing? Yeah, Ken is muted. But
yeah, that's on
Brendan.
Ken, then.
Okay, Ken.
You got a little mute button there, Ken, on your icon.
Ken, hit that mute button on your phone there. Hit the mute button. We can't hear you.
We're going to have to work on your Wi-Fi,
okay.
buddy.
But, Brendan, do you see that happening, like what Frank just said? Teams like going, if we get a chance, we're going to just unload on every opponent we play.
I think it's the Steve Spurrier mentality. I think it's kind of been that way for a long time. I think now it's a cover your ass mentality. Why would you not go blow them out? You know, and the thing is like you got so many guys that need reps, especially on Alabama. Like you're going to keep playing. Like the great ones never stop. And they push it, and so the great ones because they just can't. They can't dial it back. I mean, if you're dialing it back, you're dialing it back with second and third stringers, but you're not dialing back, you're still full tilt.
Yeah.
You don't just play. You just don't. That's not SEC football.
Yeah. And I've always been a big fan of score every chance you get. I mean, I'm sorry if the other team can't stop you. That's on them. I loved it when Spurrier did that. He made the league up the game. We seem to have somebody come along every decade that ups the tempo. And Kirby's doing it right now at Georgia. So is Sark at Texas.
And think of this, Rob, with NIL, the amount of people that are putting money in, because you don't have to be in the smoke-filled room anymore. You can go online on the Gator Collective or Tiger Collective or whatever, throw in your $1,000 to help your team out. They're gonna want to score and cover for their fan base because there's more of an involvement money-wise by these people. And let me tell you, if the Bull Gator guys got 25,000 on the Gators, minus 5, and Billy can make sure that they cover by 6, he's going to do it. It's more now than ever. Back in the old day, wink, wink, I'm going to take care, like Bear Bryant taking care of my boosters. Now it's even more because there's a wider spread of the amount of people that are putting money in. And the more money they win on, mybookie.com, the more money they can turn around and click into the collective. You watch.
Well, I think fans, guys, are more invested than they've ever been. Yeah. I know there's over 11,000 people in the Grove Collective at Ole Miss. And you look at the Razor's Edge at Arkansas. FedEx gave $25 million to the University of Memphis. Look around the country at all these different schools. The fans, not only are they paying for season tickets and priority seating and giving to stuff, there's NIL. It's like you have I say this all the time.
It's like
Green
Bay
shareholders meetings. The fans are there. I noticed something pretty cool, and Ken Capps back with us again. But fans, when you go to the games, the people sitting around you, the season ticket holders, they're not the gloom and doomers that are sending in all this toxic crap every day. They're supporting their team. They're frustrated, but you will get run out of your section at just about any stadium I've ever been to if you're a gloom and doomer, Debbie Downer out there, because they're going, look, I don't know how much money you paid, but I've got 6 season tickets, dude. I don't want to listen to your crap. That's where people get frustrated. You've got a right to be angry, but with NIL, and Ken Capps, join us if you can. Looks like he's frozen. But if fans have got to understand,
I'm worried about the credit card bill coming in from that Vegas trip. Son, we invested. There was 40,000 people out there from Louisiana or wherever the hell you came from. Yeah. Look, never in the history of college football has more fan bases have more on the line for their teams than right now. Financially, I mean, we'll look, what the inflation is. for the NIL, the cost of going to games, the PSLs.
Yeah.
Fan bases are in. Their chips are in the middle of the table. They're betting like nobody wants. That's why when you got like an issue like Brendan's got going down in Florida and Florida State, when the wheels do come off the wagon a little bit, dude, that's why they're quick to say, "Hey, I'll pay the $17 million." Look what Texas A&M did with Jimbo.
Yeah,
they
27 million. 27 million is nothing.
Yeah. Well, look, and Brendan knows this, and we all do. The fact that your fans are this upset after one game, it's good, whether you want to believe this or not. It means they care. When you've got people that care, they will invest money, effort, and time into it. Hey, look, great show today. Thanks, everybody, to watching. All of our sponsors. Cannot thank you enough. Executive producer Brendan Martin. Look, man, we're so blessed to do this. Have a great weekend, everybody. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Don't ever forget that. We're all blessed. Go out and bless others through your actions. We'll see you Monday. Thanks for watching.
Happy Football Saturday, everybody.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.